IVM.
Hey guys, if you like listening to my sultry voice and you want to listen to more of it, you can check out IVM Likes. It's a weekly podcast where the IVM staff sit together and we dish out pop culture recommendations and discuss what's happening in the world of entertainment, everything from sexism to homophobia and Oscars. It's a wide variety show. It's a lot of fun. So please tune in every Monday on IVM Podcast website, app or wherever you check out podcasts.
You're listening to Keeping It Queer with Navin Narona.
Hello and welcome to Keeping It Queer, the all thing queer podcast. And today with me, I have a very special guest. Someone in many ways helped me come into my own in this world of queer communities and talk conversations. Shobhna Kumar is here. Hello, Shobhna.
Hi.
Shobhna is a social entrepreneur and she's the founder of the online bookstore queerinc.com, which is mainly a platform where LGBTQ writers and publishers can get their work featured and they can also sell their work. And you've also now started dabbling in publishing.
Publishing and producing.
So it's a lot of things that,
yeah.
And I like the fact that you took the literature way to be able to communicate with the queer community. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us about that, where the idea first came into being?
For that I have to go back a bit, 15 years.
Yes, let's time travel.
Let's do a bit of time travel actually. So I was in San Francisco then and
okay.
Had an online affair with a woman here.
Okay.
And I was on my way back home to Sydney and she said, why don't you come and visit? So I visited Soho at the airport, met her at the airport for the first time, moved into her apartment and we're still together 15 years later.
Yeah, and I've met her and she's the most warm person you'll ever meet.
She's gorgeous.
Yeah, she's gorgeous too, yeah.
So basically that's how I ended up being here. My family hasn't lived here since 1905, so I'm the only one here.
Oh, 1905.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Fiji, isn't it?
I was born in Fiji, grew up there first 17 years and then moved to Sydney.
So how was life there? Is it like the idyllic Fiji lifestyle that everybody puts on postcards or what's it like?
No, not if you're living there, I think. Yeah, because you gotta have that. It's very humid out there.
Okay.
But yes, you have the white sands, the sea, the beach and amazing seafood.
And in Mumbai you only have the humidity.
And the bad beaches, the dirty beaches,
yeah,
yes. So it doesn't really compare, but it's very similar setup to this. So, I mean, I quite like living here because it is very similar to Fiji.
And then Australia happened after you were
Then
18.
Australia happened. Australia is where basically I sort of grew up, learned the value of money, learned the value of my ethics, philosophy, came out in Sydney. I trained as a social worker there. I worked there.
So what was the first person you ever told back then?
Well, I actually wasn't. It was not a matter of telling. I think it was a matter of acting.
So how did you act about it?
Being not caught in the act, but actually kissing somebody, I guess, is when I realized.
Oh, nice.
Being in bed with somebody is when I realized because at that point you just.
Yeah.
So I mean, the thing is that I came out. My coming out was not actually like a light bulb going in my brain and this. I was just living my life and I sort of found a woman attractive and I didn't think twice about it. We sort of dated, I guess, without actually being a date, and so it wasn't all labeled or anything. It was very fluid. One day we just ended up in bed together and it just felt right. So that was it for me. Yeah.
So a lot of us, it's like that, like until you actually feel the emotions and the intimacy that it kind of, comes with, you don't really know what to kind of put.
Exactly.
Call it, So it's great. So from there, then you started working as a social worker there.
I was already working there. I studied there as well in Sydney. I worked mainly with refugees, asylum seekers. I set up a few projects there in Sydney.
And how was the atmosphere back then with regards to the queer rights?
It was amazing. When I came out, and then I'll talk about the difference here. When I came out in an atmosphere that had arts and culture. It had books, it had film, it had theatre, and it had a lot of out people there, openly out, role models and everything. So for me, the transition from who I was to realizing who I am was quite easy because I had a lot of things around me, a lot of very positive, even though I was like Indian, being in almost like a white country, but it's not actually a white country. It's a multicultural country. So it was quite easy to do, the transition was very, very easy. And the acceptance of myself when I went through this phase was amazing. I mean, a lot of supportive people.
And that matters, representation on the queer level in terms of arts and culture. When we have somebody who's already doing drag, for example, and you look at them and you're kind of inspired by them because, and the producer's looking at me weirdly because I've been talking about drag way too much in the past few days. But it's like, it's just the fact that somebody is there doing it, you yourself become a part of this bigger circle that says it's okay, just like screw everything else.
Yeah. I would not necessarily screw everything else, but in terms of, that there is something else out there, something different out there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, when they start sort of going on this journey, the first thing they realize is they are different. And that can be very alienating. At that crucial moment, if I feel I'm different and if I have a role model to look at, or I have books, or I have films, or I have access to theatre, that particular moment sets the tone of your life for the next few years. And that is what I'm trying to do in India, I guess, is try to create enough material, enough content via books and short films to make sure that the coming out process becomes a little easier for people.
And even I'll look at like romance in books, for example, now. And like when I was growing up, I had Sidney Sheldon, I had Mills and Bones, which my sisters used to read, and and none of that would appeal to me because I would never appreciate, like as a gay boy, I would never appreciate a female as a main person in the story.
But you would appreciate the men, I guess.
I would, but then that's like a half-assed, that's like watching straight porn and not really like getting anything out of it. You watch it for the allure of it. I guess. You read it for the allure of it. The language, the eroticism is what appeals to you, but it doesn't convey what you feel.
No, the connect isn't there.
Yes. So, what was the first book that you first read that related to queer issues and lifestyles?
Oh, the first book I started reading very early on in Fiji because my dad had a huge collection of mysteries, and my reading started then when maybe I was 10 or 11, and I used to read a lot of mystery books. Sidney Sheldon, which is a romance author. Earl Stanley Gardner, which is that legal-based drama and all these other things. So, I mean, then there was this Modesty Blaze. I don't know if that... we're too young, actually.
I'm just staring at you right now.
That had a collection of books, I think about 24 books, and in that there was a character. The main character is a woman. She's very outgoing, and it's set in the 50s and everything, and she has an affair with a woman in that.
Okay.
And I think that sort of was an inkling, but it wasn't until I came to Australia that it sort of... I actually, figured out that this is what it is.
That is how it works.
Yes.
Cool. So then, when was the India decision? Like you said, you moved for the person you're now with.
Well, I was on my way back to Sydney, back home, and then I met Harshita at the airport. We spent the afternoon. She took me to her apartment and. We just spent the afternoon together. Then it became a month. It became 2 years. It became 3 years.
The plane never took off.
The plane never took off. I had to cancel my return ticket to Sydney. And so I mean, I feel like, and Harshita is actually in the import business at the moment. So she feels that I'm the first import.
She's finest import. Yes. That's so adorable.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a small break here, Shobhna, and we'll come back and talk about queering.
Okay.
So you know that thing that people say about Mother's Day? Every day should be Mother's Day. Well, personally, I think that every day should be Star Wars Day. Unfortunately though, it isn't. But on May the 4th this year, Geek Fruit will be celebrating it with all you nerds out there. Come join us at Geek Fruit Cantina at the Habitat in Car, Bombay, where we'll be making a night out of everything Star Wars, including a screening of The Prequel Strike Back, a live edition of our world-famous podcast, don't quote me on that, and joining our crew will be a bunch of special guests probably from the Instagram and the YouTube thing. Merchandise, trivia, prizes, and everything else rebel scum like you could ask for. It's the Geek Fruit Cantina at the Habitat. May the 4th be with you.
Welcome back to Keeping It Queer. I'm here with Shobhna Kumar, founder of queering.com. And Shobhna, we were talking earlier about there's a difference between coming out in a country like Australia, in a city like Sydney, and in India, for example. So you obviously faced a very massive difference here. What was it like?
I came out about over 25 years ago now. And as I said, my coming out process was quite smooth because the information was available there. Then when I moved to San Francisco, which is yet again another gay capital of the world, that transition was also, I mean, not that I transitioned sexually there, but in terms of changing countries. That was the third country I lived in. So it was very familiar, the culture and everything. So that was, an easy thing too. But when I came to Bombay, the first thing that hit me was that I had to be straight because nobody knew, nothing new. There was nothing around. I didn't know the language. Harshita didn't know many gay people. There was no visibility, nothing. So, and even in the house, when we used to live together, we used to be didis because nobody could understand the maids. Nobody could understand the concept of same-sex, same-gender relationships. So I think in the first couple of years, I actually went into straight acting and became Harshita's sister. And also, as I said, I've never lived in India before. None of my family has. So I had no experience of India, what it was like.
So no extended family either? Around.
No. As I said, I'm the first one in over 100 years. So the culture shock, I should say, it was quite immense. I had language issues. And as it was, my clothing was different and my accent was different. I was seen as coming from the West, even though I had brown skin. So everything, and then the interaction with people also was a little different because they didn't know how to take this accent, a woman wearing pant and shirt, and very confident and everything. But in that particular manner of my life, in my life outside the four walls of our apartment, we had to be straight. I felt I had to be straight, and that was a very marked, difference that I felt, and that led me to sort of look for other people in Bombay, basically. And
so this was after the first 2 years of living like this, or like?
Oh, it was first. I mean, it gradually changed over a period of time, but I remember that it wasn't until I started meeting other people, and as it would have it, I met Harshita first through Yahoo chat, through one of the sort of lesbian groups.
Chat rooms,
No, lesbian Yahoo groups.
Okay.
And through that
was a proper thing.
Yeah, it was a proper thing. It was, And then
I remember using Yahoo in the initial days, but then
when you were very young.
I was again it almost transitioned very fast outside.
Yes,
WhatsApp came in too fast.
So this was again like 15, 17 years ago.
Okay.
So when that happened, around that time also, there were a lot of Indian women who were returning to India who were also queer. And they sort of posted on these Yahoo groups to meet other women. So I was at that point in time the catalyst of meeting a lot of Indian women who were returning to Bombay. So that's how I sort of figured out who was who, and found out a lot about that. And they already had roots here anyway.
So you were always there picking them up at the airport?
No. The airport was only one experience. No more of the airport, please.
So then, how many of these people did you actually end up meeting over time?
So basically, we made time that we'd meet at a cafe or something like that, and then so there were quite a few. I mean, I don't keep count, but
what was the reasoning behind most of them coming back to India?
They either finished their studies or mostly it was they finished their studies. Actually, at that point,
to explore studies and sex outside,
right, and then come back
here and see if you can implement any of that. It's good. It's like bringing back manual labor to India, but sexually.
Yes.
So after knowing all these people, when was the idea to start something queer related?
Okay, so again, my experience was, one of the things is that I'm an introvert. So I don't mix around with people very much.
I have sensed that,
You have sensed that, yes. So one of the things I started questioning was what I was doing in, a land of 1.2 billion people. And then at some point I also got a project with one of the agencies to sort of moved around 6 or 7 states, assessing or auditing several NGOs. And there, when I met queer people, I figured out that there was information was not readily available. And for me, that's when the stark difference sort of struck me, is that in Sydney I had a lot of information where I could make informed decisions, which was not available here. Even for me, who was English speaking, knew my way around the internet, everything, I just could not find appropriate information. So therefore, a lot of decisions that I made were not even informed, or or deferred decision making. So when I met all these other people, it was sort of like an affirmation that more appropriate, relevant information is needed. So that's when Harshita and I started speaking and trying to figure out. At that time, I was about 40, 41, I think. And again, because of my lack of Hindi speaking skills, I couldn't sort of have a full-time job or work with people as I used to work in Sydney.
Correct.
So then we decided to just, collate all information and make it available on our website. So that's how Queer Ink started. So it was basically, the first thing was just put all the books together. And that's how the e-commerce started, and that's how I'm known as a bookseller, I guess. Yeah,
Like an online
platform. Yeah,
social entrepreneur who kind of brought the first wave of queer stories to the Indian reader. And that's my personal experience of meeting you as well, because we used to do something called the Queer Weekends at Hive.
The Q-Fest, yeah.
The Q-Fest at Hive. The Q-Fest at Hive. And I remember there was an open mic, and at that point they let anybody go in.
Yes.
And this like all these straight comics came and like did all these homophobic jokes.
Yes.
I remember you were in the audience with Arshada.
Yes.
And I was one of the last few comics to go up, and I was the one to talk about being gay on stage.
And you very proudly said, I'm Catholic and I'm gay. And, the joy was totally in abundance there.
Yeah. So now you tell me, how was your experience of seeing someone as a queer comic on stage? Like, you must have not seen that before that, or did you ever see a queer comic?
When Queer Ink started, I'll just take you back a bit more. When Queer Ink started, we tried to get all in the information together, and then we realized that less than 100 books that I could access. Then I realized when Queer Ink sort of was in the media a bit, people wanted to talk more about the queer word. And these people were from the mainstream. And then that's how I ended up sort of starting Q-Fest, which ran for about 2.5 years almost, every month.
Yeah.
It's basically engaging the mainstream. So even if there were straight comics or whoever homophobic comics did come, but at least it was at a platform that was queer.
Yeah.
And so my sort of...
And I had to tell them after the gig what you all said was wrong.
Yeah.
Like you can't say Karan Jor Chakka on stage because it's not right.
Yeah.
And I think that there was awareness about that slowly after. Maybe.
Yeah.
And I feel that, you have to have a diversity in terms of any art form.
Yes.
And the more I stepped into comedy or the art world of this media world, especially, the tonality of it has to change slowly with you telling people about it.
Exactly. So you actually have to be part of the change. You have to be that
You can't
change
scream
agent.
at them for not knowing because they're ignorant. That's how
exactly.
straight
So there's
population.
no information available. I mean, you are like an information referral for them.
Exactly. I'm a library. I'm big as one as well.
Okay.
So from there, I remember we then spoke about starting something called the Rainbow Mic at Hive.
Yeah.
And we would do that, and that was just basically for everybody who was queer to come and do whatever they wanted to do.
Yes.
And there were people who were singers, there were poets, there were cross-dressers, there were tabla players. Everybody came and they had a lot of fun. And it was like one Sunday every month, and I would mainly host that. And there was like a lot of people who actually got in touch with us because of that very reason, that they wanted to they're queer. So there was this one guy I remember who was a poet, and he wrote some 70 poems but never put them out because he was so scared, because he was very effeminate. And his sister told me about him, and I'm like, why don't you come and try? So I had to like train him a day before that. But when he finally did the poem, and it was so beautiful, people applauded for him, and he like literally burst down,
Oh, that's
and for
sweet.
me that was like that's beautiful, because everybody needs that platform to perform.
Yes. So Q-Fest actually was a great platform, because I had a lot of women and men who were married who came.
Yeah.
Because it was set in a mainstream venue.
Yeah.
You can't tell by looking at people that gay, lesbian, whatever it is. So they had a lot of married people come there who knew they were queer, but they could not do anything about it. So at the end of the day, they would just come and say, thank you for doing this, because it's good to see something out there. And then they would go back to their mainstream lives. But they went back with some sort of, part of their life.
Having known something.
Something is out there. So that the Q-Fest helped a lot of people in that way as well.
So let's come back to the time then when Queer Ink was then like picking up in terms of not only doing a festival on the side, but also holding a book sale and everything.
Yes. So we had, in 2010, we actually had India's first Queer Ink book fair, first open mic, first author reading, all the events that you see happening now as part of Mumbai Pride. I actually did that in 2010. And in 2011, I integrated that with the Queer Azad Mumbai.
Correct.
So that was how it all started out. And it was an amazing, because we do need to be out there with the mainstream. Aside from us and our community not knowing much, not having enough information about exploring sexuality, gender, the mainstream doesn't have enough information either. And I think it's our responsibility to put it out there and talk to them.
So initially it was only books that other people had published that you would feature on your website. But slowly you got into publishing as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the thing is that, the bigger houses used to publish maybe one book every 6 months or so. And then I met an editor, Meenal Hazratwala, who was quite keen to publish an anthology. So we got together and put out a call for submission, and we were overwhelmed with submissions. So there was a panel of about 5 of us actually sat down and read through every story and picked up 30 of that.
And all of these are compiled in a book?
Compiled in a book called Out, Stories from the New Queer India.
And they can find that on the website?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. On Amazon as well as on my website as well. Yeah, so
awesome.
it's available out there. Since then, we have done about 10 more stories, 10 more books, and we continually doing books.
Can you tell us one story that really you touched your heart, and because then we can have people interested in buying this book? Well, that's how marketing works.
I thought I was here for an interview, not a marketing strategy call.
Well,
yeah. So the thing about Out is that it's there's several stories. I mean, all the stories are actually close to my heart in that. If I do tell you a story, then it's giving away...
No spoilers, just give us a premise.
There's one story about how parents are dealing with the sex change operation of their son.
Okay.
There's another story of a woman being seduced by another woman who's also running a prostitution ring, for example.
Okay, now this is interesting.
Yes, and there's also, in one of the stories, there's a woman and there's another character. You cannot make out who the other character is until the end. But even then you try and figure out, is this a hijra or is this a woman, as in a cis woman? Or who is this? Or is somebody in drag? So there's a lot of intrigue in that. There's also a photo, sort of image, poetry in an image embedded in that as well.
Oh, nice. There's images as well.
Yes.
Done.
Yes.
For this, I'm buying it. I'm not much of a reader. I'm more of a,
No,
I'm a more. I'm just kidding. But interesting, to find out what the character is in the end, you have to buy the book.
Yeah.
So now that you see that you're publishing stuff, do you see more interest in queer performers or writers to approach you and, try to work with you?
There is a lot of interest. I'm just being very slow in sort of putting it out there. One of the things, as everybody, all the businesses were affected by the demonetization and then the GST. So it's been a year of basically, trying to figure out what's happening.
You want to down low for a couple of years because back to back demonetization GST happened. And for a small business owner, it obviously affects you in so many ways. It did,
because you need to have so much more reports and the good thing was that on an e-commerce site everything is online and everything goes straight to the bank, so there was no cash involved. But what had happened was that I work with other vendors and their work was affected as well. So that was one thing. The second thing was GST, in trying to implement that, applying for it. And then also in terms of books, for example, any of the books that I print, GST is applicable. But the book itself, when I sell it, there's no GST.
Okay.
Which is the beauty of the thing, is that I don't know.
Still confuses me, but
it confuses everybody. So for I think 2017 we took it a little slow. We'll be coming back on ramp now. I also, like I said, mentioned earlier, I'm a accidental, social entrepreneur. I'm an accidental publisher, and I also had the opportunity to be a producer of short films as well. So that's also something which I did in 2017.
So how was that experience, the whole short film genre?
I think I love it. I love...
Have you worked in films before?
No, never. I've never done this work before. I'm not I've always worked
But isn't that a joy of it, Shobhna? Because I see, you said, you started your own business at 41 and then you're doing so many cool things one by one because and you've not done them before. It's just you're going and you're winging it and you're killing at it. So it's kind of inspiring also at this level.
Oh, thank you.
That you can do something. I don't even want to, I don't know, I think 50 is my cap. After that, I'm checking out. But before that, I won't do enough things so I can, put out my resume like that.
Okay. Well, you could. You still have time. Or I've already passed 50, so, No, but the thing is that, I when I questioned what I was doing in a land of 1.2 billion people, I think the purpose of my life of being here was basically about facilitating information and how to make it accessible. And I think this is what I'm will be doing for the next 7 years. So 2017 was the 7th year of operation for Queer Inc. We did a review and everything. So now we've come up with a 7-year plan, which we'll start implementing this year.
And has it been difficult breaking even in terms of investment and...
It has been difficult. For the first 7 years, we've put our personal sort of liquidated retirement funds. We put our cash in it. We put the cash in from what we got from book sales and everything. But the next 7 years, we are looking at other funding as well, other collaborations, other partnerships as well. So we'll put that out sort of publicly in the next few months now. Yeah.
I wanted to discuss, so you said there's the obvious difference between having queer stories on a print medium versus a e-book version.
Yeah.
So why is that?
So when we started, when we first published out, we had a lot of feedback. And one of the feedback that struck me, which I keep talking about at a lot of platforms, is a woman in Hyderabad. She basically went to crossword there 1 hour each day to read
The book.
out, because she could not buy it and take it at home.
Because the family will find it.
Exactly. And for example, Gulabi Mela happened over this weekend. There were a lot of people there, but they would not buy books because they'll have to go and put it somewhere in the bookshelf.
Yeah.
So a physical book doesn't help in that sense. So then we sort of came up with the idea, we didn't come up with the idea of ebooks, but we went into ebooks then to basically so people can have access to it on their phones or tablets or computers anywhere. And the ebooks are selling much better than the physical books.
That's awesome, because I'm a sucker for physical books. I remember one of those first book sales at Hive. I purchased one of those, coming out in America, one of those stories.
Yeah.
And back then I was still just like doing comedy about being gay, but not sure if I have to tell my family. And when I read the stories in that book, it kind of inspired me, because some of these characters in the book were murdered because of them being queer.
Yeah.
I'm like, how the fuck can they do this to people? And there's a lot of anger, right? There's no way of really channeling it. And I think literature helps you, because the fact that somebody from a different country altogether could be going to something that you are going in your own life, and that resonates with so many people. So words have a lot of power.
They do have a lot of power. And one of the things we did earlier on was we imported a lot of books. Again, the feedback was that they wanted books with Indian context, Indian names, Indian localities. That's another reason why we went into publishing, is there weren't books available. So we thought we might as well start creating content. So, I mean, that sort of feedback has helped us a lot, and people do appreciate, I think.
Yeah. And also helps because after I came out to my family, the book was there with me. So I just had to give it to my siblings and say, now read and understand,
Right.
So, and they're well read, so they had to obviously understand what my life is all about. And we've had very open-ended conversations about this because of the fact that this is not just something that's happening to me, or somebody is going through something like this, and we can all have a bigger adult discussion about it. So where do you see yourself going from this point on now?
I think I'm limiting my next 7 years to basically creating content on multiple platforms, which includes, print, digital, short films. The other thing I'm planning to do is translations. I think at this point in time, we have several books that we can translate. So we're looking for translators, people who will take on projects. One of the other things I'm looking at is basically we have enough content, but how do we approach parents? How do we approach families? I want somebody to sort of put something together that can be in English, in different languages, that is available freely, just a PDF.
Or like a PSA, basically, for parents, if they want to understand what...
PSA, whatever it is. I mean, like your podcast on coming out, or how parents should appreciate who their son or daughter is.
Correct.
Or a PDF that can be, just sent to somebody. They can print it out and give it to the parents. Because the thing is, we all live in metros. We don't think about how other people will be able to access this. So one of my other things is making sure that whatever we develop is accessible by other people as well.
Across all tiers, basically.
Hopefully across all tiers. And one of the other major project we're looking into is how do we tell people that Queer India exists? And for that we have sort of very small announcement we made earlier, but we are launching an online film festival, a queer...
Oh, nice.
Only queer content. Queer India content.
So like you want videos and short film submissions?
Yes. So it's basically like any other film festival, except it'll be online and people will be able to access it on their phones wherever they want it.
And they get to vote for the best movie or something?
Yes, they will.
Oh, nice.
So there's a viewers award and there'll be a jury award
so
as well.
Till when is the entry on?
We'll be launching it publicly probably next month.
Okay.
And we anticipate the viewing session to be in June this year.
I should start brushing up my direction skills. I have some stories to tell. So thank you, Shobhna, so much for joining us. I'm really glad we could do this, and I've been wanting for you to come to the show for a long time. I've even told you that, and I'm really, really thankful for everything you've been for me in my life. I want to take this moment for real to acknowledge that Shobhna is a wonderful person, and to anybody out there who feels they're in questioning or have struggled dealing with it, please tell her she's warm enough to reach out to you, and she'll do something. She'll work wonders like she always does, and that's the show.
Thank you so much for the honor.
Okay, and in case you do need to get in touch with Shobhna, you can write to her at info@queering.com for all your queries about queer literature or about your personal stories. You can write to her, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. The Keeping It Queer podcast will be back with the Culture Vulture segment featuring Farhad right after this break.
Yeah. It's IVM here, let's go. We the IVM kids on the block over here. Just to talk, taking a break from producing all day. Coming on this podcast cause we got stuff to say. IVM Daily is the name of the show. Monday to Friday, we ready to go. Talking about stuff in our head. We might even talk about our favorite bread. Signing out, it's IVM here, the podcast network that's in your ear.
Catch IVM Daily, Monday to Friday on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Farhad.
Hi, Navin.
What's up?
Nothing much, buddy. What about you?
Welcome, dear, to Culture Vulture.
Thank you. Thank you, Navin, for having me.
When I say you are welcome, you say you are thank you.
You are thank you.
Hi guys, this is me, Navin Narona, back on Keeping It Queer. And as you already know, we are on the Culture Vulture part of the show, where every week we talk about queer culture and what you can explore in terms of movies, films, Instagram accounts, musicians, anything that relates to being a part of the main cultural zeitgeist.
Sure.
Zeitgeist is a big word. I like it. I like using it.
Yeah.
It's got 4 syllables.
Zeitgeist. That's 2.
It's 2 syllables. Oh shit. I don't. Okay, let's not talk about zeitgeist.
You're welcome, Naveen.
So, what do we talk about today, Farhad?
The return of Queer Eye.
Oh my God.
I am so
Shut
happy. First of all, when I heard Queer Eye is coming back, I was like, why? Why is it coming back? Because when I used to,
the older one is not that great.
It's not that great. I used to only watch it in extension to Oprah because Oprah used to have all these Queer Eye guys on her show all the time.
Yeah.
And then she started dedicating an episode to the Queer Eye guys who would do makeovers for people on Oprah show and all. But I was having a very shitty week and this week, and I was like, I don't want to watch something intense. Let me just see what Netflix has done with Queer Eye, and what a great mistake that was.
Amazing.
It is such a light, upbeat, probably the most feel-good show on TV right now.
Yeah, I was just I was crying at the end of every episode, but with with joy, just
Same here.
There was this weird, hopeful feeling in my heart. And for a second, when you let's explain the concept of Queer Eye to the listeners. So basically, it's a show where 5 gay men, Bobby, Karamo, Tan, Anthony, and Jonathan, all go and find one guy that week who's been nominated. He could be straight, he could be gay. Mainly, they're all straight men. They have to transform, and they
only do straight men.
Yeah, there's one gay dude though.
Yeah, I have 2 episodes left to go, but I know it's already wow, I'm saving it.
So basically every week they go and meet new people, and they try to transform their life, not only their way of clothing or their diet or anything. They also transform them culturally, they transform them emotionally.
Exactly, that's the thing, right, about this show. It's not 2-dimensional. It's a little cooking show. It's a little fashion show. It's a little Project Runway. It's a little real estate. It's a little spiritual,
Pimp My Ride.
In fact, one of the things I like the most about this latest reboot is the fact that how much of the focus is on breaking down toxic masculinity, you know, because so much of it is steeped in self-love. When you see each of the contestants that have been chosen for each episode, these are not the Purana wala Queer Eye, you just knew that, you know, they've sort of chosen a guy who's just got a little ragged, and once they clean him up, he's going to look fucking great. But this time they've not even done that.
They go deep in the barrel.
Yeah, they deep.
And I'm just glad they found like 3 bears in there. I'm just like,
lots of bears.
I'm happy.
I'm trying to think about an episode which doesn't have a bear. All of them had like...
Mostly all of them have some, bear quality.
So 96% on Rotten Tomatoes was you. Apart from... I just love how this time it is so much about from working on yourself, right? Internally, how to move, like how showing signs of vulnerability in today's age are strength. Like those little things that are tackled are absolutely well done. It's a little funny, it's camp, it's...
Jonathan is by far my favorite because of his sheer candor and just like the way he is with everybody. He doesn't give a...
That's the thing. When I started the show, I was like, this is the one I don't like. But 3 episodes in, I was suddenly spray, delay, and walk away. I just knew, okay, just like, I love this guy.
Everybody says pomade, but I say pomade because it makes me sound classier. He's just too good, He's giving me face, he's giving me talent, he's giving me everything. Like I believe him because he's just like, he's in a barber shop full of like these husky men who are all just like, you know what, we're here for a haircut, bro. And this guy just like tying his hair behind, playing around, not giving a single care. I just like that. I just think it's it's kind of proof of the fact that now we have come in this time and age where gender is slowly blending into each other.
Exactly. And I could totally understand the previous version of Queer Eye was to focus on the fact that, hey, there's so much to learn from gay guys. But this time, I think it is that it's entirely different. That it's not about there's so much to learn from gay guys. It's just about how to like not let go of yourself, and that's something that you can learn from gay guys, because just a little effort, counting yourself as an investment on a daily basis, can just make you such a great person. And I like that is a huge highlight of this reboot, at least.
And like there are conversations that they're also opening up, especially one of the episodes, there's a cop, there's a cop in Georgia who's like a redneck basically. He's a Trump supporter and previously hated gays until like he meets these guys. And he's a white cop.
And it was so tough for the black Karamu
to sit in the same car with him and have a conversation about
In fact, I thought it was damn weird, because that particular episode, the guy who nominated the cop, he was also a cop, and he pulled them over. And when you saw Karamu's face, it was a little oh shit, this is a real... So I like how they are breaking new levels of boundaries with this reboot, at least. One was a devout Christian guy, and like just these little conversations between a devout Christian family man while they are like planting some, growing some plants and shit, and then talking about homosexuality and what a devout Christian feels. And it literally is such a breath of fresh air on TV right now.
And one of them is an Indian guy.
Tan.
No, I mean like...
in the episode.
Neil Patel.
Yeah, Neil Patel. Oh my god, his mom was legendary. She just didn't approve pretty much of anything. Like in the end, she was like, I'm proud of you. But like every Indian mom, she was like, I'm proud of you, but I will never stop worrying about you. Like, you're still a fuck up.
So Queer Eye, check it out, guys. It's on Netflix. And you can...
In fact, last night, I had 3 straight friends over. What I loved was, I was like, hey guys, have you all seen Queer Eye? They have no idea. They don't even know what Queer Eye for a straight guy was. But they were like, what is this? And I was like, this is what you are watching while we are eating dinner. And I put it on, and I... based on their reactions, how much they were enjoying it, I totally felt like I'm glad Netflix got it back, you know, because they were giggling at all the right parts. All of them at some point like would say something like, I need these guys to come and clean my cupboard or do me up or my skin, you know what I mean? It was such a it was quite heartwarming to see.
I'm sorry, I kind of trailed away while you were talking. I went to the firefighter episode. You haven't reached there, right?
No.
Oh god. Cool. So
I'm waiting.
We should wind this episode up and let's go watch the firefighter one together. So keeping it queer, it's time to get off, guys. And agla station,
masturbation.
Bye.
As you can see, we have a podcast listener in his natural habitat. Millions of years of evolution have led him to this point. He's on his way to work, and listening to podcasts makes his miserable day better. He will now head to work and use all his knowledge to communicate with other colleagues and possibly future mates. You can find more of his species on ivmpodcasts.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out all the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.